Gotta say, a week in, I'm feeling very, very good about Oscar prospects for both Dolomite and Joker. They're both burning up the box office and doing very well. And Dolomite's, of course, going to live on Netflix in perpetuity. So.
Yeah. That's a little weird that movie's going to be
on Netflix.
Yeah, immediately. But there it is for people to watch it. No reason for Academy voters to miss it.
That's it. No reason to miss it at all. And they're handling it really well. It's beautiful. It's going really well. So, have you gotten any screeners yet?
One or two. I got
I got some show. You got The King.
Not
Netflix,
that one.
Not the Netflix one.
The one about Imelda Marcos. The documentary.
Oh yes.
So whatever it is.
Yeah. That's what I got too. The Showtime doc. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, we should be getting more. October is usually a fair early month onslaught, but haven't gotten any of those yet.
I'm assuming that we're going to be spending the rest of our award seasons, all of them, hostless in most cases. It doesn't seem like we're going to be having any hosts.
For the time being, everything's cyclical, so they'll go back to a host when there's somebody that's safe to go to.
I can't imagine who that's going to be. It's because,
I'll tell you who it's going to be.
It needs to be an attitude shift.
I'll tell you who it's going to be, and it'll be right. It'll be justice. It's going to be Kevin Hart.
You think so? You think? Yeah. To me, that pivots more on Kevin than it does the Academy at this point. And I think Kevin's got an attitude. And I don't know. The little man seems like he holds a grudge.
Yes, but I also think it pivots on not so much Kevin, but it pivots on how much we're willing to go against the people who are opposed to Kevin. And I think that it is a vocal minority. And I think at a certain point, the opposition just becomes kind of shrill and repetitive.
Yeah.
And it just becomes like a droning sound in the background. And it's been there, done that. He's paid his price. We feel like he's the last few years he's been he's been a good boy. It's been really clean comedy. He's been a good citizen. He had that accident.
Oh yeah, I was going to say since all of that, he had that wacky accident.
He had the accident, and he's recovering. And
you get a certain sort of empathy.
Yeah, that's it.
Although there's a whole weird thing about who was actually driving.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
Yeah, but it's not gonna.
That's whack.
Nobody died.
You know who could host the Academy Awards? No kidding. And I say this completely. And he has a long track record in history in the world that everybody's been looking at for the last 30 years. I think.
Yeah.
The person who can host the Academy Awards easily, Will Smith. Will Smith can host it. First of all, he'd be a great host because he's funny. Will has never ever said or done anything remotely deeply objectionable.
Well, other than making certain movies, but
certain movies that are good. But as a human being on the planet, you're not going to go back in Will's Twitter feed and find a problem.
And one of the three most charismatic celebrities I've ever met.
Yeah,
along with Schwarzenegger and Crow.
Yeah,
and all for different reasons.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I keep thinking there's a way to shoehorn Jerry Seinfeld in there somehow.
Yeah, Jerry.
Because comedians in cars is a thing. He still has a profile. He hasn't disappeared. Seinfeld just signed that giant new deal for Netflix.
Yeah.
So he's back on everybody's radar. He's still a sharp comic. And his material is classic Oscar material. It's funny, there's a new channel on XM Radio. I should make mention of this.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it today by accident because every once in a while you get sick and tired of listening to the same 5 or 6 channels. So I'm just going through the dial, the XM radio dial, and I'm like, oh, this is a great bit. This is Johnny Carson talking. It's in the comedy range, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the comedy channels, which is usually stand-up stuff, and I'm listening to a little bit of Johnny Carson talking to Bob Newhart, and then I realize I look at the screen. I'm like, are you kidding me? There's a whole channel, a Tonight Show channel.
Oh,
it's all old Tonight Show bits. Nonstop, they're just farming out. They're licensing old Tonight Show stuff, and it's just it was Carson and Bob Newhart just doing shtick, like not even prepared to rehearse shtick.
That is fantastic
because they were buddies off screen too, and it was really really funny. And it's that Johnny Carson thing that Carson had when he hosted the Oscars. Very much Seinfeld.
Yeah.
So he could do it too. You're right. Will Smith could do it. There are a lot of people that could do it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting, man. Yeah, a lot of you. What's funny is if you want to find people who can do it, you got to go backwards in time, which is ironic to me. I mean, Jay Leno could Jay Leno host? Of course you could.
Yeah.
You can if you go backwards in time, you can pull in all kinds of old school guys and women.
Yeah.
Who could host because the problem is you're younger, newer, and even by that we're talking about people 40 and sometimes plus 40 years old. They've been spending the last 20 years trying to be ever more edgy.
Yeah.
And therefore, dancing out there on the edge of the razor blade with the things that they say and the idea, it's a thing since certainly since Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah.
Andrew Dice Clay was that last guy who went out there and he got smacked down and beat up and ground into dust being out there. But since him, these comics have been trying to live out there, and that's what you get.
That's why I think Seinfeld would be, because he's a perfect old school guy. He's like a younger version of Billy Crystal.
Yeah, he was never interested in being edgy, Jerry.
No,
he was interested in being funny.
Yeah. He's just old school Catskillian style Jewish comedy.
Observational.
Observational.
Stuff that's in the world that I find funny.
Yep, absolutely. Very, very true. David Brenner was another one.
Yeah.
Robert
Klein, the old school. Richard Lewis.
Richard Lewis.
Yeah,
all
of these guys.
I was listening to some of Richard Lewis the other day. It just had me in absolute stitch. I'd forgotten how funny he could be.
Yeah.
He was so neurotic. Gary Shandling.
Yeah. Oh, the late Gary. Gary's so wonderful. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna dive in with some. So we got a lot of TV this week. We've got some docs. We got foreign. We got all the new stuff out of the way last week. So we're gonna get into some. We're gonna get into some TV and foreign and docs this week, and also got Tim's got a couple of LGBT titles. The first one I'm going to talk about here for foreign film fans. Wow, is this an unusual, kind of very strange Dutch-French co-production that feels the need to put a pull quote on it from Barry Jenkins? So Barry Jenkins, this is how they're buying their cred. Is Barry Jenkins, who is kind of now based on his first three films really, but then everything since Moonlight, and Beale Street, he has a lot of art house cred, and so they figure we put Barry Jenkins on here, maybe people will watch our weird movie. He says, "This Magnificent Cake is my favorite film of the year." Okay. I'd love to know the context of that, under what circumstances, but here's the deal. So this is a 1/66 shot film on Blu-ray. It's called This Magnificent Cake! ! And this is basically a stop-motion animated film that takes place in the Congo during Belgian colonialism. Which is if I were to tell you, if I were to go to financiers and say, so we want to do a stop-motion animated movie. Oh, that's great. You mean like Wallace and Gromit or like Coraline? Absolutely, exactly. One of those. So it's like Wallace and Gromit, Shaun the Sheep, Coraline, stop motion, except it takes place in the Congo during Belgian occupation. Okay, you lost me. Where are the jokes in that? It's it's an unusual thing, but it winds up being relatively interesting. And by Magnificent Cake, what that refers to is that Africa was viewed by the colonial powers as a cake, and King Leopold of Belgium said, "I don't want to lose any piece of this magnificent cake." That was his reference to Africa and then the Congo in particular. So anyway, this is from directors Mark James Rolls, who is Dutch, and Emma de Swaif, who is, I think, Franco-Belge. I'm not sure. But anyway, this is in Dutch and in French, and it's a co-production all over Europe, but Netherlands and France, presumably, and Belgian money, I'm sure, is in it. They get tax credit money all over the place. And so this is a look at the colonists and the colonized, and all through stop motion. And it is strange. I'm not going to tell you anything else. It's very strange. Has a behind the scenes gallery and an interview with Rolls, but somehow it kind of sort of works. It's an unusual movie. This Magnificent Cake. From Distrib Films, The Silent Revolution, which is actually really quite good. Silent Revolution takes place in East Germany just about a decade after the end of World War II. And it is, I don't believe that this is based in fact, but it's based in actual factual events. So it is effectively once these various student revolts start happening in the 1950s against communist rule in the East, and there was the Prague Spring and all these various things. So this is about a group of students who are made aware of the uprising in Budapest in Hungary, and who decide that they're going to have some small gesture that shows solidarity, which winds up getting a little bit out of hands. And what it says about history is quite interesting, but the performances are superb. This was at the Berlin Film Festival in 2018 and did quite well. It is, but it's one of the better, German language films I've seen in a number of years. It really tackles the history in a very interesting way. A very, very young Bjork shows up in this movie called The Juniper Tree by Agnieszka Keen. This is from Arbalos. It was made in 1990. It's very short. It's only 80 minutes long. And this is an Icelandic fairy tale of sorts. It takes a fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm, transposes it or transfers it to medieval Iceland, and puts Bjork in it in her first acting performance as a woman with a younger sister, and it's an older sister. She's the young one. The other one's the older sister. And they are trying to basically save their lives because their mother has been arrested as a witch. And it gets into the superstition and the culture of medieval Iceland in a very, very interesting way. The photography is absolutely sensational and beautiful, all in black and white, and very, very impressionistic and very kind of dreamlike at times. And this also includes a trio of short films by Agnieszka Keen, which are all very good, and a new interview with the cinematographer and archival video with Keen. It's worth checking out. I'm not a fan of Bjork, either the music or her acting. However, this really kind of all works. She's just weird enough, and the story's weird enough that it all kind of melds together in a relatively interesting way. I'll do a couple more here, and then I'll turn it back over to Tim to dive into some TV or some docs. Kung Fu Monster is from Wellgo, and this is a kind of a middling. Last week we talked about Gremlins, and this is like a Kung Fu Gremlins of sort. It's okay. This is right around the time of the Ming Dynasty in China, and the Sultan of Brunei, or his equivalent at the time, has like this little gizmo-like gremlin creature that he wants to give to the Ming Dynasty as a gift, and then it just turns into basically Kung Fu Gremlins. It's really the only way to do it. It's not. It's a little silly, but it's nicely done. It's silly. Three Peaks, pretty interesting movie actually. This is by Jan Zabail, and it stars Berenice Bejo and Alexander Failing, the German actor. Berenice Bejo, of course, the Argentine-born French actress, and from The Artist and various other things. The story here is quite interesting. This is about a woman, a single mom, and her child, and her current boyfriend, played by Failing. And they are vacationing in speaking of, the Dolomites. People, just to make clear, with all our talking about Dolomite, the Dolomites are a mountain range in Italy, not associated with Dolomite, the character known here in lore. So they're vacationing there and may want to stay there forever, but there's friction between the kid and the potential stepfather who may become stepfather, and so you wind up getting into this. It's almost prank like. That the kid wants to sort of start. They go out for a hike, and the kid decides to kind of do something, and things spiral out of control. And before you know the friction between the kid and his potential stepfather becomes much more serious than it otherwise should have been. So interesting, a little bit constrained. It's beautiful photography in the Dolomites, but an interesting film nonetheless. It's called Three Peaks. And let's see, I'll do this and then I'll turn it back over to you. Jackie Chan in Bleeding Steel. Jackie Chan's movies have just been so terrible lately. And this is a grindstone Lionsgate deal. It didn't really make it into theaters, didn't need to. This is just Jackie as a playing his super cop character again, except with a different name. Basically a super cop. And he's trying to find this super villain, this Bond-like villain, and who's and who's using technology and chemicals to make himself super powerful. And then it just goes around. Then there are all these different story twists that go into all very strange directions that make no sense whatsoever. But the concept of bleeding steel, which is actually a thing that they develop in the film, that's sort of interesting. So action scenes are generic. Jackie is not great, but it is what it is.
A few films over here.
Yeah.
Start off with a couple of LGBTQ films. One very, very funny, Bathroom Stalls, Parking Lots, and Parking Lots, Bathroom Stalls, and Parking Lots is the funniest film. About a young man who travels from Brazil to San Francisco, realizes that one of his American friends that he knows, that he met in Brazil, is actually in San Francisco for the weekend. That guy has a straight friend.
Yeah.
And the two gay guys and the straight guys decide to roam around the gay bars and bathroom stalls and parking lots of San Francisco on an evening with the straight guy trying to teach the gay guys how to loosen up and have a little fun. Which I just find absolutely
that's really actually quite clever.
It's like, you gay guys, man, you guys are tight. let me show you how we straights do it. Which is just absolutely hysterically funny little film that I enjoyed quite a lot. Behind the scenes, features, deleted scenes, bloopers, all that kind of stuff. It's always funny to me that the small little films have so much more by way of special features on them nowadays than some of the larger films. Occasionally, anyway. The second of our LGBTQ films from TLA releasing is Fireflies, another very powerful little movie, a little drama. About a young man who's fleeing persecution in Iran, goes to Turkey, gets on a ship in Turkey, and finds himself unexpectedly in Veracruz. Just, he
unexpectedly.
Yeah, he doesn't.
That's hysterical.
He thinks he's going someplace else. Nevertheless, now he's in Veracruz. He's there all by himself. He doesn't speak the language. He runs into these people. He just starts to figure out a way to build a life for himself while he's homesick for home, but also enjoying a certain sort of freedom that he never had when he was back in Iran, because things are very tough back there. Again, a perfectly lovely little film that I think most folks would rather enjoy. Cassandro the Exotico, which is a wonderful little film about a very particular sort of lucha libre wrestler in Mexico. So lucha libre, the masked wrestlers and all that kind of stuff. Well, there's a strain of lucha libre which involves cross-dressing wrestlers, and they are very flamboyant, and their outfits scream drag queen. And they wrestle as good as any of the wrestlers in the mask, and it's a lot of fun. This one is about a guy who does some of that stuff. It's just the funniest thing you've ever seen. So I got to recommend that. Cassandro the Exotico. Clarence Clemons, the wonderful saxophone player. Moving on to documentaries.
Yep.
Clarence was just an astounding figure. This little documentary begins with Clarence back in 2003 when, after a long run with the Eastwood Bruce and the East Street Band and actually doing a lot of television acting, he had spent some time on several television programs, as a matter of fact, Clarence, he decided that he needed to take a sabbatical. And he put down the saxophone, and Clarence went to China.
No kidding.
Yeah, and some filmmakers just sort of followed him all around China and everything.
And that's
what
this
did,
is?
What he spent, this is what this
oh,
is
no
about.
kidding.
Now, they continue or they actually sort of pick up following Clarence again after he returns to the United States. And just about the time they pick up following him again, early in 2011, and Clarence is in Florida, where he has a stroke and dies. That's when we lost Clarence Clemons.
That's so
back
sad.
in 2011.
I didn't realize he went to China before.
But he went to China, and it's just absolutely interesting that these filmmakers happen to pick up with him again, and they're going to follow up with Clarence and see what's going on with Clarence, and they're there. They're a part of his life and engaging with him again in this film, just at the moment that he has a stroke and passes away. So it sort of came full circle around. This Clarence, all kinds of wonderful people in this film, including Bill Clinton, among others. Joe Walsh, Jake Clemons, his son. Wonderful figures talking about Bruce Springsteen, obviously. Wonderful people talking about Clarence, but a good chunk of this film is simply wandering around with Clarence as Clarence wanders around China, not playing the saxophone. Danger God. Danger God is a film about a Hollywood stuntman who is believed, a guy named Gary Kent, who is believed to be the fella that Quentin Tarantino based A Good Deal Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on. This stuntman, Gary Kent, who was a stuntman way, way, way back in the day on all kinds of films and working for all kinds of directors dating back to the late 1950s, really. He worked for Richard Rush, Dennis Steckler, Al Abe.
I could see this. Yeah. I could see this now. Now this all makes sense.
Yeah, and he had an interesting brush with the Manson family. This guy, he's sort of bigger than life, kind of guy.
Now it all makes it, because Quentin just he cherry picks all of those unusual little details and anecdotes and bits of trivia. And he stitches them all together in these really interesting ways.
And he builds a bit there. This guy had a little crossover with the Manson family, all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, if you're wondering who that guy that Brad Pitt is kind of playing,
because
in Hollywood.
So he basically he took the relationship between Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds and juxtaposed it over this guy.
Who of course worked for both Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham.
No kidding.
You can find Gary Kent falling down in Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham movies.
Oh, interesting.
Gary, this guy here, Gary's about 150 years old now. He's still buffer than I am.
Yeah, it's crazy. I hate those guys.
It's kind of irritating, deeply, deeply irritating.
So, some more foreign here. Tokyo, Living Dead Idol. The Japanese can really do some weird stuff. This is from Crack.
We did drop a nuclear weapon.
Yes, this is from Kraken Releasing. This is really actually kind of funny. It's about this girl who's a pop star, and she gets bitten by a zombie. And now she's got 72 hours to find the cure, or she's going to be a zombie. Or if she finds the cure, she gets to keep being a pop star. So, it's silly, it's cute, it's kind of overly high concept, but they get a lot of mileage out of it. It's not as good as Anna and the Apocalypse from last week, but it has its moments. It definitely has its moments. And there it is. It's Tokyo Living Dead Idol. It's a really, really cute cast, though. The Third Wife by Ash Mayfair, this is a Film Movement release, is very, very good. What I love about this is the backdrop is a period and a place that we all know nothing about, which is 19th century Vietnam. And, Vietnam as a country, as a place, as a culture, doesn't really show up on anybody's radar until really 1950s, when the French are there and they're fighting communists and the whole thing. And then that, of course, dovetails in the Vietnam War for us. Well, what was Vietnam like before that? A really rich culture and a fascinating place. And this is about a polygamous household in the late 19th century in what would eventually be called Vietnam. And a woman who is the third wife to the landowner. And if that sounds a little bit like Raise the Red Lantern, it kind of is. There are a lot of similarities here. So she realizes that there are certain things you have to do to elevate your status, just like Gong Li does in Raise the Red Lantern. And then you get into all of the political entanglements between the wives and, how they jockey for position in the household to do certain things and not do other things. And, of course, there is a lot of tragedy in this. And in the end, it is just really, really, really interesting. All in Vietnamese. And it's a pretty short movie. It kind of flies by, and you'll appreciate it. If you like Raise the Red Lantern, you'll really, really love this. This has an interview with Ash Mayfair on it, and a commentary, and then a short film that Ash Mayfair made some time ago as well called Grasshopper, also Vietnamese with English subtitles. And Louis de Funès stars in The Mad Adventures of Rabbi Jacob by French director Gérard Houry. This is also from Film Movement. This is on their Film Movement Classics line in Blu-ray. And this was actually a Golden Globe foreign language film nominee back in 1973. It is a wild movie. It's just a completely strange comedy. If you don't know who Louis de Funès was, he was, one of these really great French screen comedians who didn't kind of break much out. He didn't break out much further than just some French films. But this is probably his most internationally successful film. And it's based on a bit of a con, I guess is the best way to put it. So you've got this Archie Bunker-like bigot who runs a factory and who is captured by an Arab revolutionary. And they want. How do I even do this without sort of revealing the story for people who haven't seen it? There's they are both. Oh, how to even put this? They've got to disguise themselves as rabbis. I won't tell you why. I won't tell you the circumstances. I'll just do that. They have to disguise themselves as rabbis. And that winds up getting into this bizarre, mistaken identity plot, and it just gets funnier and weirder and more eccentric as it goes along. And there's a lot of it's like a big Three's Company episode.
Yeah,
basically, it's just kind of a wacky farce. So Danielle Thompson, the great French director and also screenwriter, she co-wrote the screenplay. And there's also an essay here by the author, the original author of the material. So Gérard Houry, very talented director, Louis de Funès, very funny guy. Together they made The Mad Adventures of Rabbi Jacob.
Fantastic.
I'll do one more and then I'll let you get to the rest. So The Girl in the Fog by Donato Carisi, based on a successful novel, essentially tells the story of a disappearance of this teenage girl in the Italian Alps. And the detective who is called in to try to figure it out and realizes that there are more nuances to this and more issues that may be immediately evident. And it's not, is it a thriller? I guess on a certain level it is, but it's really more about it's a bit of a psychological study of how a tragedy affects all the different people and all these different aspects surrounding it. Very, very good film. The Girl in the Fog.
Fantastic, fantastic. A couple of really interesting docs over here. The first one is called The Quiet One. It's just a wonderful documentary about Rolling Stones founding member of the Rolling Stones, Bill Wyman.
Yeah, I love this doc.
Bill
I love
Wyman,
this doc.
Absolutely extraordinary individual who was apparently one of the most sensitive members of the band.
And older. He was older than everyone else.
Older than Mick. Bill was born in 1936.
Yep.
So he'd be 83 now.
Yeah. And also the most, and I have an additional story on this too, but he also the most normal. Mm-hmm. He's not a rock and roller. He loves music.
He loves music, yeah.
But he's not like a woo party like while the rest of them are, jamming.
Bill was not about sex and drugs.
No.
He was about rock and roll, but he was not about sex and drugs. He was a family man, relatively speaking.
Yep.
Did not care for the infighting and all that, because he loved creating the music. Walked away from it all, Bill.
Yeah.
Without regret, and became an archaeologist and a photographer, a world-renowned photographer. Yeah. And one of the things that he's been archiving over the past 45 years now is the history of the rock and roll revolution and what rock and roll meant all around the world as a revolutionary tool that young people have always aggregated to whenever they wanted to become engaged in revolts.
Yep.
The music of revolution is not Strauss.
Yeah.
It's rock and roll, to some extent hip hop, I suppose, nowadays. But it's
it's popular music.
It's popular music.
Yeah.
And Bill Wyman is just a wonderful, wonderful historian of all of these things. This film, everybody that he ever ran into, and he ran into everybody and talked with everybody. So The Quiet One, a wonderful title for an absolutely fabulous documentary about Bill Wyman.
So this could have gone with your LGBT segment, but I want to keep it in the foreign segment. This is a film movement release. Really, really interesting. This is a Kenyan movie, and it is called Rafiki by the director Wanuri Kahiu. And this is a lovely, lovely movie. This is about, it's still a very, very conservative culture with respect to all things sexual in Kenya. And this is about these two women who who pursue, despite what the law and culture says, who pursue a relationship with each other. And it is a simple, I almost wouldn't even call it a romance. I mean, it is a romance, but it's really much more about their friendship. It's not, it's not the sexuality. It's not the attraction between it. It's just these are two women who don't fit in the society and who find in each other some validation of their individuality. And the fact that there is a romantic aspect to this, it's all kind of superfluous. It's a very, very sweet film with two very, very solid actresses. And the film is Rafiki, and it's only 83 minutes long, and I think you should check it out. Also, there's a really good bonus short film on it called Hudson by Shay Shu, which is worth checking out.
Fantastic. The Reverend Theodore Hesburgh, very interesting figure over the course of history. Born in 1917, died just a couple of years ago, 2015. So almost made it to the century mark. He was an actor, among other things. He was a reverend, but he was an actor. He was in a Rudy, one and only acting role. He played the priest, which is a perfect role for the reverend there.
Yeah.
The Catholic priest. What he was most importantly was an advisor to just about every major political figure in the United States. From the mid 40s
probably
on.
Yeah.
Every single one, right through Barack Obama. You have the Reverend Theodore and Martin Hesburgh, Theodore Martin Hesburgh, and he was a wonderful figure, a civil rights activist, of course, pushed back against all of the things you weren't supposed to push back against in the Catholic Church, and spoke about them all, including some of the sex scandals and all that kind of stuff. The Reverend was right there, always on the side of right. This is a really fascinating film about him, all the more fascinating in all the people that you run into or will find yourself juxtaposed to as you watch his life. He was on that podium when Martin Luther King gave that speech that I have agreed to. The Reverend was right there. The Reverend eulogized John F. Kennedy. The Reverend eulogized Robert Kennedy. And on and on and on. He was one of those sorts of figures that we had in the late 19th and all of the 20th century, but I'm not sure that we have figures like this in the 21st century. One might think that the new Pope would be one of those figures, but he won't be. The new Pope will be divisive. And I don't think you can have figures like this anymore.
That's interesting.
There were a few of them in the last century, but I do not think that we can have them anymore. Marianne and Leonard, Words of Love. This is a very odd documentary about Leonard Cohen and one of his paramours, made by Nick Broomfield. Nick makes very odd films that he sort of insinuates himself into. He insinuates himself into this one too. Basically, it just follows Leonard Cohen during this particular period in his life when he was involved with this woman, Marianne, whom he dedicates a song to called Marianne. It's one of his early songs back when he was still a novelist, really. And it's about them and their life together on the Greek islands. These Greek islands, and it's a very, very odd and disturbing film about this woman who seems to have been infatuated with him, his engagement with her and her son, and what this all turned out to mean to him, his life, his career, her and her son. It's not that revealing about Leonard Cohen in and of itself. The movie is mostly about him, but it's still not that revealing about Leonard Cohen. So if you want to learn something about Leonard, you won't, other than he was something of a narcissist. I think we always sort of knew that a little bit about these sorts of folks. But anyway, Marianne and Leonard, directed by Nick Broomfield.
Got a couple here from Indie Picks. One is Haitian, one is Mexican. And they're both good. The Haitian film, God bless her, Mira Nair threw her power behind getting this thing out there and executive produced this, which means, Mira Nair just said, I really think Getty Felin is a talented filmmaker, and I'm going to make it possible for you to get something out there. Yeah. So, first-time filmmaker Getty Felin got a little boost from Mira Nair and made this movie Ayiti Mon Amour, Ayti, Ayiti Mon Amour, which is a lovely little sort of allegory. Centers entirely on this small little town on the coast of Haiti, and it uses the town and the sea and the people in it are really just all a giant metaphor for the rest of the world, and all these interesting interlocking stories like in Babel. It's really a lovely story, and especially because it is set after the earthquake, the devastation of the earthquake, and it has this magical realist sheen to it. And it really is a very, very competent and very smart film. Ayiti Mon Amour. It's worth checking out. The interlocking stories are done very, very nicely. And the other one from Indie Picks is Hypnosis to Be Happy, which is a Mexican film about two people who've never married. And so he's going to decide to propose marriage to her. And that winds up not being received exactly as you would expect, and things take a very strange turn, and it winds up having a pretty salient commentary on modern-day relationships and alienation and society and so forth. Hypnosis to Be Happy by Victor Audefred.
Wow. That sounds fascinating. Around the world, around India with the movie camera, this is just an absolutely fascinating film. What this film does is look at the 50 years prior to Indian independence in 1947. So we have this deep, deep British archive, the BFI Institute. And they go deep into the archives of explorers and adventurers and British military folks and journalists, of course, from the BBC and elsewhere, who over that 50 years, so basically we're talking about 1897 up till about 1947. And they just cover everything. This is Sabu is in this film.
Wow.
And it's just a beautiful, beautiful song. And it's what I like about it is, yes, while most of this footage is being shot by Brits, the colonials, it is endearing and loving of its subjects. It's not one of those sort of nationalist sort of things about colonials. It's an absolutely lovely film for the sort of footage you're just never going to see again. So all kinds of bonus features on here too, including about 33 minutes of silent film from the silent film era, a travelogue through India. Just gorgeous, gorgeous.
Fantastic. Yeah. A couple from Film Movement. Out of Love is a beautiful film. This is a Dutch film that they want to call this sort of, well, it's as passionate as a Dutch film can be. I'm not going to offend the Dutch, but the Italians are passionate. The Dutch don't really get a spot on that list. But anyway, this is about a couple that just has a whirlwind romance. And then it all kind of goes sideways and downhill, and it's similar to a lot of French films that try to do this as well, like A Toxic Affair, with Natalie Baye and Sergio whatever his name is. It does something similar, and this is kind of in that same general vicinity. I like the performers, Naomi Velisariou and Danil Vorobayev, but. Yeah, it's not quite as strong as French films that tell this story, but it's still a really very well told and very well acted film. And then the other one is Ritual, a psychomagic story, which is from filmmakers Giulia Brazale and Luca Imesi. And this is a bit of an odd one. This actually has Jodorowsky in the film, and it claims to be inspired by him. But it is, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. It doesn't feel like a Jodorowsky film. It's very surreal. It's very much kind of steeped in supernatural ideas. It's visually very, very arresting. It's similar to the other film. It's a story about a couple with a very strong relationship, and how things affect that relationship in a negative way, and what they do to try to turn it around. And in where it goes, you are never going to be able to guess. So that is Ritual, a psychomagic story. Watch only if you are prepared for any and all surprises.
Wow. The Ice King is an absolutely fascinating documentary about a fellow named John Curry who has fallen out of history, unfortunately. John Curry, 1976 Olympics, Winter Olympics, was an ice skating champion. For one thing, he completely evolved the sport of ice skating from what it had been. And
I remember this.
Yeah,
John Curry, he was gay too.
He was gay. Well, he was the first openly gay Olympian. Period.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just first openly gay Olympian, period.
I remember that was a thing at the time.
It was a big, big deal.
Nobody
but he was an astounding ice skater. And some of the jumps and spins and triple axles and multiple... John Curry was one of the first ice skaters to do that. Now, what he also was horribly combative human being. Some of which you understood. The world of ice skating is competitive to begin with. It's particularly competitive if you happen to be a gay man who was out in gay. He was upset that he knew that there were other gay men in ice skating who would not come out. And he was sort of like out there to do battle all by himself against all of that. So he was sort of prickly about that, as well as a few other things. He was a bit self-destructive, very ambitious, and a brilliant skater. But he is a sports figure who has somewhat fallen out of history, which is unfortunate for the gay community specifically, because they have this figure, this person amidst their icons who they've kind of lost a little bit. Nevertheless, John Curry, fantastic figure in ice skating, 1976 Olympics. This is a wonderful documentary that goes quite deep.
German film In the Isles by Thomas Stuber. I'm not really a fan of this movie. Part of it is because Sandra Hüller, who was in that horrible thing that I hate so much, with the dad and the daughter and the mask and the teeth. What was that thing?
What was that?
Oh, that freaking German film that drives me crazy. There was a hit at Canada. Everybody else loved it.
White
anyway.
Material?
No. It's like the name of the character that the dad plays. Remember, and then there's all the fur at the end. It's a horrific, unfunny, overlong 3-hour German comedy. A 3-hour German comedy. So, like, what is wrong with people?
I remember that from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that thing, that ridiculous movie. Anyway, so look, I'm half German. I'll tell you, we're not funny people. not at 90 minutes, and certainly not at 3 hours. So, In the Isles, Sandra Hüller. Otherwise, I might be more inclined to her. To Tony Erdmann. That was the movie. Tony Erdmann.
Yes.
Ugh. Everyone else loved it. I hated it. Anyway, I would be otherwise more positively inclined to her. So basically, this is a theme we got going here. These unusual romances. This is about two people. She and this guy, this kind of creepy dude, who work in this giant warehouse, this grocery warehouse. And the warehouse is, of course, sort of metaphorical in many respects, as it obviously would be. And they have a bit of a romance. And it's one of those common people romances where we're supposed to go, oh, isn't that sweet and ordinary and normal? I guess, maybe, but it also isn't as sweet as everybody thinks that it is. It's called In the Isles. It's nicely photographed. I will give it that much. And then we've also got Feliz Año Tijuana, which is kind of like an Alex Cox movie. If you imagine a Spanish language, Spanish and English language in this case, but mostly Spanish language version of Repo Man set right on the border, that's kind of what this is. This is about this professor, this Chicano studies professor from Los Angeles, who has an encounter with a former student right down near the border, and things go sideways. It says a commentary track, deleted scenes, and a few other things. It's just eccentric enough to be engaging. Feliz Año Tijuana.
I got a couple over here, including a documentary called The Proposal, a Jill Magic film. About Luis Barragán. Luis Barragán was one of the most important architects in Mexico, in world history, but certainly in Mexico. Many of the most important buildings and communities, entire communities in Mexico, in Mexico City specifically, were designed by architect Luis Barragán, who died in 1988. He has an archive. He had an archive of drawings and notes and letters and all kinds of essays and all kinds of things that is kept in Switzerland. That is under the control of this Spanish woman, named Frederica Zanco. Frederica Zanco, it is said, received control of the Barragán archive from her fiance back in the 90s, who gave the archive to her. It's a wedding gift.
Oh, wow.
A wedding gift, right? And she's put it in an archive and in a safe, and it is not something that the world can visit. The world cannot see the collected works of Luis Barragán, who was also an artist as well as an architect. So the artist and director, Jill Magic, decided that she felt like this was a terrible situation for Barragán's writings to be kept away like this. So she solicited Zanco to release these things to her and back to Mexico, to the Mexican people, to relinquish them. And Zanco said no. So Jill decided that she was going to do something outlandish in addition to making this documentary about Barragán and this entire situation. what she did involved the exhumation of Louis Spergon and the taking of his remains and the distilling of some of them, at least, into a ring, an actual ring, and offering this ring to Frederica Zanko as a gift of sorts.
Nice.
I'll give you a little chunk of this dead guy if you give me his archives back, or give the state of Mexico his archives back. It's a bit of a stunt, this movie, but it does enlighten us about the work of Louis Spergon, whose papers are important, his archives are important, and I do wish that they were available for us to see. But I still think that there's a bit of something going on in that documentary that's not completely sincere. That has something to do with the artist and the artist's work, and her sort of performance art sort of dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Even the movie is in a way a piece of her performance art.
Right.
So it's not completely sincere there. Wonders of the Sea in 3D. This is just a wonderful, wonderful French documentary shot in 3D by French ocean explorer Jean-Michel Cousteau, grandson of Jacques. That for some reason Arnold Schwarzenegger is involved with. I guess he digs to sea. He shows up in the film. He does some narration and has an interview in the film. Mostly we're under the sea with a whole bunch of exotic animals, hammerheads. Dude, the hammerhead shark will always fascinate me. For one thing, its head is shaped just like a hammer.
It's so
How the hell did that turn out?
Well,
anyway. Neat. Under the Sea. 4K Ultra HD and Blu-ray.
All right, and we've got some Well-Go titles remaining here. We got some giveaways for them, too. First one is not Asian-themed, by the way. Every once in a while, Well-Go does stuff that is not Asian-themed. We have two of these to give away. It is called The First King, Birth of an Empire. And this is from Matteo Rovere. And if you know the story of the Roman Empire, it's about Romulus and Remus, the two brothers, Romulus and Remus, who founded it. Eventually, they borrowed that on Star Trek, and that's where the Romulan Empire came from. But the story of Rome is that it was founded by two brothers, Romulus and Remus, who were raised by wolves and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Anyway, that story. Is it done very well? Not particularly. There's not a lot of money to throw around here, but they try to make it respectable. And you got to kind of applaud them a little bit. I mean, it does have some moments but they're playing it for action, really. So it's called The First King, Birth of an Empire. Send us an email to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com with birth, BIRTH, in the subject line, and name and address in the body of the email. And we will send two lucky people The First King if we receive it by Friday the 18th. By Friday the 18th. We'll let you know within 24 hours. We're also going to be giving away one copy of The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil. This is a Korean action film that is pretty darn good, actually. It's about a gangster and a cop who have to team up. I can't really tell you anything else other than that. But it's a very unusual buddy team-up for absolutely incredibly good reasons. The gangster, the cop, the devil. That will help you figure it out. The gangster and the cop team up. The devil, who's the devil? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. The devil is a very compelling character and a great has a lot of great stuff behind it. So give that a look-see. That's got some bonus features and making of featurettes and whatnot. And we're giving away one copy of The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil. Send us an email to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com by the 18th. And put cop in the subject line. Cop, C-O-P. And we will pick a winner by the 19th. And then the last of these is The House That Never Dies, Reawakening. In case you didn't realize it, it's a haunted house movie. It is. It's a haunted house movie. You know, a whole family was murdered, and then other people come to the house, and it's still filled with ghosts and spooky happenings, and now they want revenge and all that kind of jazz. Look, I mean, this is it's fine, I guess. It's as fine as a Mandarin language Chinese film can be, but it's not Japanese spooky. It's not Korean spooky. It's not even American spooky. It's definitely fourth tier at best.
Mm-hmm. A couple over here.
Yeah,
little TV.
Yeah. My favorite show of all time.
1989 to 1991. 1988 to 1991.
Yep.
It blows me away that this series was that long ago.
I know.
We're talking about China Beast Complete Series.
Yeah. Such a good show.
Yeah, I mean, a fantastic show.
Yep.
Coming along at that period, Vietnam. Post-Vietnam, when Vietnam was still a thing in the zeitgeist, all these guys coming back, all those movies, Platoon,
Yep,
Hotel Hanoi, Full Metal Jacket, so many were coming along, and then this series, which of all of that stuff, Full Metal Jacket is Full Metal Jacket and all of that, but of all of that stuff, in terms of a comprehensive sort of let us live in Vietnam, and most importantly, not a boy movie. This movie was as much about the women in Vietnam, all of those nurses, soldiers, working at those hospitals, as it was the men who were going out on missions, which was one of the more powerful things about China Beast. Despite the fact it's a series set during that war, it's not a series about boys at all.
And this is the re-release. So this is the first time it's been back out since the original release, and full series. You got to check it out. I wish it'd do it on Blu-ray. but in time.
This is one of those blow your mind things too. When you go back and watch it, after 30 years almost, and you go through episode by episode, all the people you see, all the Michael Boatman and all just all the young actors who were coming up, who went on, Robert Picardo, who went on to really make names for themselves. It's amazing. It's amazing how many of the young actors and actresses who came to this series. One of them had some real serious careers. Ricky Lake was in a daggum episode of China Beach, man. Chloe Webb is in China Beach. Tom Sizemore is in China Beach. I can go on. Wings Hauser's in a China Beach. Just on and on and on.
It's crazy.
If you go, Dorian Harewood is in a China Beach.
I know.
Just go on. It's just one of those series. Gave everybody a shot, and Francis Naijen is in China Beach. So, wonderful series, the complete series there. This Netflix sort of series the
toys
that made us.
Yeah,
I love this. This is pointed at people from our generation.
It sure is,
because it's not the toys that made us. Of course, there were toys prior to our generation, but we had a different generation with our toys. Than our parents did.
True.
Say.
Yeah.
For one thing, generally speaking, the toys that formed us as children were sold to us on television.
Yeah,
we watched Saturday morning TV commercials, and these sort of marketing firms. They built these toys. Some of them were the first toys that were merchandising toys.
Yeah.
He-Man. There was no He-Man toy that spun off a cartoon series. There was a cartoon series that sold us He-Man toys. So we were the first generation where everything was sort of flipped on its head, and media became involved.
Yeah.
And real serious marketing became involved. You couldn't just give a kid a rock and a string and say, "Okay, go play, boy," and have them be happy. That our generation, we had to have. And these toys, really, every single one of these things is absolutely fabulous. And I can remember where I was the first time I got one or played with one. Great story out of Netflix. The toys that made us.
Gunsmoke, the 15th season, volume 1 and 2, 26 episodes split between these two double disc sets, all remastered, all beautiful, all really wonderful. And here's the interesting thing about the 15th season. The 15th season takes you out of the 60s. This show started in the 50s. Remember that. Gunsmoke started in the 50s, in that moment when Westerns were a thing on television, and television was young, and it was, Westerns just were connected. And now we're turning the corner. We're going into the 1970s. So the 15th season is the one that gets you into 1970. And what's significant about that is that the rural purge took place in 69-70. And that's when the new leadership at CBS came in and canceled all the rural programming, Mayberry RFD and the Beverly Hillbillies and Gomer Pyle and on and on and on and on. And they replaced it with That Girl and All in the Family and the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And suddenly they were focused on people in the cities. And the question is, what does Gunsmoke do at this moment? Because Gunsmoke belongs to a different era. And it's really kind of becoming an anachronism in 1970. And you can see it in the writing here, that they're trying to sort of keep up, trying to keep, up with the changing times. Because Gunsmoke in 1970, the show started right after the Korean War. And now we're in the middle of the Vietnam War. Yeah, I mean that's how do you? Those are all part of the cultural current, and you got to sort of acknowledge that on some level in the writing of the show.
Close to two generations.
Close to two generations.
Separating the beginning of the show in the 1970s. Yeah.
And it would go on, I think, another 5 years, right? It was 74, I think, when it went off the air, which is amazing to me. But there it is, Gunsmoke, 15th season. And then we've also got American Horror Story Apocalypse, the complete 8th season. I'm kind of amazed that this is carried on this long, but people like it. And it's one of the hit shows on FX. They got a new season coming up, and they switch it up every year. That's part of what keeps it fresh. They find new ways to just creep people out and terrify them and bring in a new cast. And this, not my favorite show. I don't really quite get it. But you know what? Sarah Paulson, Kathy Bates, those are some name actresses, and they are able to somehow really give it a production value and a sheen and take it in new directions, and it's different every year.
Yeah.
So good on them. The interesting post-apocalyptic angle in this one here, but there it is, AHS Apocalypse, the 8th season.
Wow. Kathy Bates was in an episode of China Beach.
That's right, she was, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Hong S. Noor was in an episode of China Beach. I did not know that.
Crazy.
It's those late '80s, early '90s television shows, man. They were
loaded.
They were absolutely loaded. Here I have Charmed, the reboot of Charmed season 1. I will admit that I watched this. I was a big fan of the original Charmed, Shannon Doherty, all that kind of stuff. And I was just, I don't know why, I was just one of those people. So when this popped up, for whatever reason, I decided I was going to engage. I watched the entire first season. I absolutely adore this reboot of Charmed. And I'm not one to adore these reboots of things, as folks who listen to this show know. But I do adore this. This is the first season. It's really, really lovely. I love it's sort of ethnic sort of thing that's got going on with the little Latino girls and their half-black sister and all this kind of stuff. It's a charming, funny show that's still speaks to some of the contemporary issues that we have going on today. Special feature on there, the making of Charmed.
So I don't really know what to think of Tell Me a Story. Have you watched Tell Me a Story?
That's that Kevin Williamson series.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It's
Kevin is a Scream and Dawson's Creek.
So
and all kinds of crap.
It's clever. It might be a little too clever. So I don't like the other fairy tale Once Upon a Time that show. I don't like that at all, because what that's doing is just weird. It's like trying to wrap contemporary drama around fairy tales in a very confusing way, and you're in and out of different worlds, and it doesn't make sense. Tell Me a Story basically takes a whole series of fairy tales, including Little Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel and Three Little Pigs of all things, and creates a season-long modern-day urban dramatic arc that sort of modernizes and integrates all of them. So they're not literal fairy tales, but they're like reconceptualized fairy tales. Anyway, you feel like you should laugh, but it's so dark and so thrillery that you sort of can't. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes in a second season and if they can kind of sustain the gimmick. But man, it's really unusual, and I give them A for effort. It's something I've never seen before. So on that, Kevin Williamson, good on you,
man. Coming out of Scream, that was his first big thing.
Screenplay
for Scream. It was his first, and Kevin just really did build a rip-roaring career. Out of that, went straight into Dawson. One of the co-creators of Dawson's Creek, and then on the other subsequent Screams, and
he's done a good job,
and just cranked it out pretty good there. Got to be a little impressed with Kevin, because we think about the Buffy the Vampire Slayer guy, Josh, and all his stuff. But Kevin did some good work over there too, man.
Yes, he did. And then we also have Doom Patrol, the complete first season. Which is, yet another variation on a DC adaptation for television. DC is doing so much better on TV in every conceivable way than Marvel is, and Marvel is doing better on the big screen. It's just a strange thing.
I mean, there's a lot of Marvel stuff on television, but it's not good.
Yeah, it does. It's not.
But for the things that I happen to enjoy,
DC keeps nailing it. Batwoman.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah.
It's like turning out much better than I thought. This is a bunch of really kind of weird DC superheroes that you've never heard of before. Chief, Crazy Jane, Elasti-Woman, Robot Man.
Elasti-Woman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. See, these are like weird. These are weird superheroes that just sort of don't make sense. And the only thing that they all have in common, and Timothy Dalton, by the way, dude, Timothy Dalton is old.
Yeah, he's been around.
I'm watching this and I'm like, who is that really interesting old British guy? He's got that's Timothy Dalton. Like you freak out. It suddenly dawns on you. He's not James Bond anymore. He's an old man. He looks older than Sean Connery. What happened? It's really kind of creepy. So anyway, the only thing that keeps all of them together is that they were all sort of disfigured in some way. They all had some horrible disfiguring accident that left them disfigured, but also with superpowers. That's the only thing. That's what makes them the Doom Patrol. And so they wind up having a, let's say, a mission together to solve a particular situation, which I won't tell you any details about. And it's a little funny, and it's a little weird, and it's a little bit like Legends of Tomorrow if they were really, really messed up and weren't time traveling.
Which is kind of funny.
And the last one here is the complete series of Life with Lucy, which is a bit of an unfortunate show. It ran only in 1986. It was an attempt to kind of reboot the cast of the Lucy show a little bit, and it doesn't really work. Lucy's too old. Gail Gordon is too old.
Yeah, and they're still leaning on a lot of physical comedy, which was just scary.
Yeah, it just they threw a lot of people at this thing. Audrey Meadows and John Ritter, and they threw a lot of people at this season to try to hold it down. But it's just Lucy is not Lucy anymore here. So I would say this is really strictly for people who feel the need to be Lucy completists. You're going to want to have this one volume set here, the complete series Life with Lucy from 1986. But otherwise, it's kind of sad.
Yeah. Mystery Science Theater 3000, Volume 12. Which means nothing to me.
Yeah, if Mark were here, he'd recite chapter and verse.
All that kind of stuff. Look, Mystery Science. We watch bad B movies with the commentary from a robot and a dude.
Yeah, I don't know. It's never been my thing.
I was just never my thing either. And the thing of it is, more often than not, I just wanted to watch the damn movie.
I know. Same here.
They were cracking wise about. Nevertheless, there it is. I think they rebooted this with a different crew.
Yeah.
A couple of 2-3 years ago. Nevertheless, this is Volume 12. The movies that are mocked on this thing include the Rebel set, Secret Agent Super Dragon, the Starfighters, and parts of the Colonius Horror. I don't know those movies at all, so you got to be into Mystery Science Theater 3000. Storm of the Century, an adaptation of Stephen King's Storm of the Century. This was a 4-hour and some odd long television series from 1999, I think it was.
Crazy.
Not a particularly good Stephen King book or short story or whatever it was here, which made a not particularly good. This is not one of the better Stephen King adaptations over the course of many, many years. I think we talked about The Shining last show. It should be coming out on DVD sometime soon.
Cool. Very cool.
If I'm not mistaken.
All right, I guess that's it. My goodness, that was a fast show. Perfect. All right, everybody, we are done this week, and have a great week. Send us all of your emails for the giveaways to gods@digigods.com, gods@cinegods.com. Make sure they get to us by the 18th, Friday the 18th, and we will pick some winners and make some people very happy. And otherwise, we will see you end of the month. We're getting close to Halloween, so we're going to try to have a Halloween show. Oddly enough, fewer Halloween titles being released this year than in previous years. I don't know what that means.
Including 2 or 3 movies, that Guillermo del Toro movie, Scary Stories You Tell in the Dark.
Yeah.
They released 4 months ago.
I know.
What the hell did I do that for,
I don't know.
Guillermo?
Hold on to it.
3 or 4 of them, a big raft of horror movies that I was reviewing in September.
It's crazy. Hold on to that stuff. All right, we'll see you guys next week.